There is this deity, it's standing right in front of me. Don't know if it's a Beanie Babies, but the ladies are smitten. Does it get its wisdom from the terry cloth? It loves you all, but it's cold as hearth. It asks you what you are, then it is written. Hey, are you a fish or are you a goat? Tell the other side and be sure to gloat. The goatfish will think you are a bullshitter if you claim you are a fence sitter. Are you a fish or are you a goat? In the shape of water, that chick fucks a fish. And in the end that you could argue she's a fish. Or maybe she's a goat, 'cause she's horny all the time. Pretty sure bestiality's still a crime. Scream, I am a fish or I am a goat. Find the other side and then punch them in their fucking throat. Your decision should be common sense, unless you sit on the fence. Are you good or are you a fish? Are you good or are you a fish? Are you a goat or are you a fish? Are you a goat or are you a fish? Are you a goat or are you a fish? Are you a goat or are you a fish? Are you a goat or a fish? Are you the goatfish?
Goat versus fish. In the beginning, there was goat versus fish. The GoatFish. And Goat versus Fish said that there should be goat and that there should be fish. There is no alpha or omega. There is no black or white. There is no good or evil. There is only goat and fish. And goat versus fish. Welcome to the Goat vs. Fish podcast, recorded at the world-famous Comedy Store, Los Angeles, a place of goat versus fish. You hear the word of goat versus fish, the very word of goat versus fish. And Goat vs. Fish hears the word of you. You have many questions, yes? Who is goat versus fish? What is goat versus fish? Why is goat versus fish? But there is only one question. Are you goat or are you fish? Ponder it now. A goat is of the land, a fish is of the sea. A goat is not of the sea and a fish is not of the land. You are goat or fish and fish or goat are you? Who shall triumph, the goat or the fish? Let us find out on this versus of Goat versus Fish. Fence sitters, fence sitters, fence sitters. Just when you are pondering goat and fish and goat versus fish and how pleasant the verse is, along comes a fence sitter. Like that one, that Alex Hooper one, yes, that goat versus fish did speak to in the past verses. Quite the flip-flopper, that one. Quite the flip-flopper, saying it is a goat, then saying it is a fish, then a goat again. And then a fence stander, it did say. A fence stander, it did claim. A fence-sitter may call itself whatever it wishes, but it is still a fence-sitter that does not choose goat or fish. Goat versus fish thought this one had dispensed with the fence-sitting when it said it was a fish. Make some noise for fish. At the end of the verses, but just when it was all fish, it sat on the fence again, trying to balance, as it did say. Beware the fence-sitter. Beware the fence-sitter, and beware, fence-sitter. You may fall from the fence and harm your very self. As the one Dave Carter did say, yes, it is not safe on the fence. It is not safe on the fence. Even now, as the Goat vs. Fish podcast is being heard all around the verses, with so many choosing goat or fish, like you who choose goat or fish, are you goat or fish? There remains the unpleasantness of the fence. Sydney residents' fence crossed a line, town officials say. It is written in the Billings Gazette. It is not a word of goat versus fish, but it is written in the Billings Gazette of Montana of the United States, they do say. A fence dispute has divided a Sydney resident and the town government. Late last year, 35-year-old Bob Blair built a 6-foot-tall fence that runs along the road next to his house in East Sydney. Now the city wants it gone. Is the city of Sydney a goat or a fish? Goat versus fish does not know. But it says no to the fence. It says no to the fence, and this pleases goat versus fish. We continue. The city insists the fence is on city property along the street and blocks the view of traffic rounding the corner. You see how the fence makes it difficult to versus, difficult for goat and fish to versus? On the two goats in the fence, goats, perhaps it is not so fence-sitterly after all. No, hold your verses, it is not goats. On the two gates in the fence, Blair has painted an American flag and the Gadsden flag, which is yellow with a coiled snake. Snake! It's a snake. Ooh, it's a snake. A snake upon a fence? A snake upon a fence? What is the verses coming to? Is a snake a goat or a fish? And if you look at this visage of one Bob Blair of Sydney, you will see it looks as if it has a fence upon it. You shall see it if you search for it now. Goat versus fish has seen goat and fish like this as well, but this one champions the fence. And it does seem it is the very fence it sits upon. Driver crashes into white picket fence in southeast Portland. Ooh, this sounds fence-sitterly indeed. According to what they call Fox 12 Oregon, does the fox say it is a goat or a fish? Goat versus fish does not know what the fox does say. A white picket fence in southeast Portland is in pieces after a driver crashed into it. Fox 12 spoke with Johnny Wynn, who lives in the home. I hear a loud boom and I was freaking out and was like, "What is going on?" the one said. "What is going on indeed," one Johnny Wynn, be you goat or fish. When the fence is about, goat versus fish does not seem so clear, does it? Fish seems as goat, goat seems as fish, and this is the way of the fence-sitter. This is the way of the fence-sitter. The ones who call themselves police said no one was hurt. Are the police goat or fish? We do not know, but Goat versus Fish is pleased that none are hurt so that the verses may continue as strongly as it can be. Proposed change to fence law is dead. Dead, they do say. Local fight over wildlife spurred proposal. It is written in the Jackson Hole News and Guide, a local verses of wild goat and fish. It continues, on Tuesday, the Lawful Fence Standards Preemption Bill died in the Wyoming House Minerals Business and Economic Development Committee. The 8-member board ran out of time to discuss it before Tuesday night's deadline for the bill to pass out of committee. Oh, what pleasantness to Goat versus Fish. What pleasantness. Not enough time to discuss the fence. Not enough time to discuss it, the ones say. Surely there were more important verses of Goat and Fish to discuss, yes. Goat versus Fish itself cannot wait to stop talking about the fence, but the ones must hear it, so they may beware the fence. This is Goat versus Fish. The bill was introduced in response to a local fight over whether the Serenity Ranch could raise the height of its fence by a foot. Neighbors fought back, saying the extra height would block wildlife movement. You do see, preventing the very movement of goat and fish, this fence. There are so many ways to verses that cannot be done without the frolicking and swimming of the goat and fish. Teton County has a long record of protecting its agricultural heritage, while at the same time protecting wildlife migration from the hazards of non-agricultural fencing, commissioners wrote. Without local fencing authority, there could be an increase in human and wildlife mortality and increased roadway maintenance expenses. Yes! Yes, we do celebrate. We do not want the end of goat or fish, and certainly not the end of anyone who chooses goat or fish. How pitiable it is when one would meet its end by a fence without ever hearing the word of Goat versus Fish. Oh, it pains Goat versus Fish. Oh, it pains Goat versus Fish. You see, ones who listens, there are many ways the fence does create unpleasantness among the ones who choose goat or fish. And though Goat versus Fish celebrates when there is one less fence for a fence-sitter to sit upon, let us remember that the true way to leave the fence, the true way to avoid the fence times, is to choose goat or fish. To choose goat or fish. Goat versus Fish only asks that you choose goat or fish, that you follow Goat versus Fish, and that you spread the word of Goat versus Fish. On the Instagram, on the Twitterver, on the Book of Faces, all at Goat versus Fish, all at GoatVsFish. And it was written, and it was written. This verses Goat versus Fish speaks to a one, speaks to another one. And what do the ones call this one? What do the ones call this one that did make such a celebration, of Goat versus Fish?
Hey, I'm Kelsey Lane.
Hey, it is Kelsey Lane. It is Kelsey Lane.
Oh, sorry, Kelsey Lane.
Ah, you are called Kelsey Lane, yes. Pleasant to see this one again. You have met Goat versus Fish before, yes? You have spoken to Goat versus Fish?
Many, many times.
Yes, tell us of the first verses that you did speak to Goat versus Fish.
The first time I met Goat versus Fish, let's see, well, he was performing. Of course, spreading the word, I should say. It was in Mar Vista at...
Goat versus Fish remembers a Mar Vista comedy festival, yes? Perhaps it was at the place they do call the Time Warp Records, yes? Was it?
Time Warp Records, indeed, yes. That was the first time.
And what did you think of Goat versus Fish?
I thought, I don't want to be disrespectful to you. I thought, what is this person doing walking around in what looks to be hotel towels? But I didn't realize the greatness and the magnitude of what was happening at the time.
Ah, yes, you have learned of Goat versus Fish. So many still speak of the towels, as you do say, yes?
Yes. Well, in our world, it's a little bit different, so...
Ah, how is it different? How is it different for these ones? Goat versus Fish is always trying to learn of the ones, yes? How would you say it is different?
Yeah, I think that, and we should all be curious as to what you believe and what we believe in. That's what's most important. Well, for us, if a man is wearing towels, it means like maybe he just took a shower or he's about to take a shower, but you are not a man. So
No.
So that's what makes it different.
Goat versus Fish has heard of this man and this woman, yes?
Yeah.
Even one that was called Doug Benson, yes, did ask Goat versus Fish, what do you think of the battle of the sexes? It did ask Goat versus Fish. What of this man and this woman? Yes, Goat versus Fish has not asked it so directly, yes, but is one a goat, is one a fish? What is man and woman?
Right. I guess that is confusing because for you there is only goat and fish.
There are only goat and fish.
Right. Oh, but thank you so much.
Yes. Always thanking Goat versus Fish. Yes, continue.
But in our world, there are men and women, and then there are also so many in between. You can feel like a goat one day, but then other days you feel like a fish. There's also those that were born goat that have always felt inside that they were fish, so they change. There are also those that were born a fish, and society has told them that you are a fish, but they always knew inside that they were goat, so then they became fish. If that makes sense, I figured.
Goat versus Fish has met and spoken to many ones, yes, and Goat versus Fish has heard many ones describing their own inner verses of goat and fish in this way, yes. Mm-hmm. Goat versus Fish simply wishes to say, yes, that you are either a goat or a fish. You can be a goat now, but be a fish at another verses, yes, but you are either goat or fish. You are either goat or fish.
I just don't know if it's this particular subject. I don't know if it's quite like that, man.
Are you goat or fish? Are you goat or are you fish?
I'm a goat.
It is a goat! It is a goat! And we celebrate this goat. We celebrate it. How does it feel to be goat? How does it feel to be a goat?
Oh, I love being a goat. I've explored the world of fish, and I knew that world wasn't for me.
Ah, you have explored the seas of the fish.
Of course, I had to make an educated decision.
Ah, so you say. And describe your exploration into fish and how it was that the fish does not agree with this goat. Of course, it is Goat versus Fish.
Well, I thought, I've been on boats, and I thought, the sea makes me feel seasick. A lot of problems with boats, and I thought the sea maybe is not for me. Another thing, I eat fish. And I've tried as much as I possibly could, but I cannot eat myself. So I decided I think I'm more of a goat.
You have tried to consume your very self. You have tried to consume yourself?
Yeah, I mean...
That is a strange way to verses. If a fish did try to consume itself, it almost sounds like a fish trying to versus a fish.
Right. I just tried once just to see if I could be that flexible, but it didn't exactly work out the way that I wanted it to.
How did it work out? How did this versus work out? Tell Goat versus Fish.
Some people just aren't flexible. A lot of human men, they also try to eat themselves, but...
Is this so?
I did know one person that could. He could. He ate himself.
And was it a goat or a fish?
I didn't have the opportunity to ask.
Ah, that is pitiable. That is pitiable. Goat versus Fish would like to meet this one, yes, to ask if it is a goat or a fish, yes, and what it is like to consume oneself.
Yes.
It sounds strange to Goat versus Fish, but there are many ways to verses.
Mm-hmm. And in our human world, it's called like he blew himself. Like it was like he fellaced himself.
That is what the ones say, yes.
Yes.
Goat versus fish has come to understand that the ones that you call the humans,
Oh,
yes,
okay,
these are
the
the ones who choose goat or fish.
Okay. The ones, my bad.
Yes.
I have so many questions for you. Do you think I can ask you questions?
Yes, of course. Questions for Goat versus Fish. Yes, Goat versus Fish is here to answer your questions. Speaking to you now is Goat versus Fish.
This is lovely. Where are you from? The world of Goat versus Fish. Where is it? It's not. I would imagine not in this planet, right?
Goat versus Fish comes from within you.
Okay,
And all of you, yes.
that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It is Goat versus Fish. It is Goat versus Fish, yes.
Okay. I'm curious about, like, your upbringing. Like, do you age?
In the beginning, there was Goat versus Fish, and there shall forever be Goat versus Fish, yes? Sometimes Goat versus Fish is feeling stronger, yes? Sometimes Goat versus Fish is feeling not as strong, yes? But it is always Goat versus Fish. It is always Goat versus Fish.
And, I mean, can you perish? Can you die?
Do you speak of the end of a goat or a fish?
Mm-hmm.
Goat versus Fish is forever Goat versus Fish. It is forever Goat versus Fish.
Okay.
There will not be an end to Goat versus Fish. There shall not be an end to Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish does perhaps ponder what it would be if there were no ones to hear the word of Goat versus Fish. No ones to choose goat or fish, not even a one to sit on the fence. What would it be? What would it be? It would still be Goat versus Fish. And Goat versus Fish would say that there should be goat and that there should be fish. It would be lonely for Goat versus Fish, but it is still Goat versus Fish.
And when was the beginning for you? I have so many questions because the beginning for, like, year one, we mark our years by Jesus. When was the beginning, though? Is that a big bang? Like, what happened?
The beginning was the beginning. It was the beginning of the beginning of the beginning, and it was Goat versus Fish. You may mark your verses as you wish, but in the beginning there was Goat versus Fish. All things are goat or fish. All things are goat or fish. Now, Goat versus Fish has a question for this one.
Absolutely.
Are you goat or fish?
I'm goat.
It is a goat, yes. It is always the verses to ask if one is a goat or a fish, yes. When Goat versus Fish did find the twit of yes, the twit of it is a way to spread the word of Goat versus Fish. And Goat versus Fish was looking for ones to follow Goat versus Fish. And Goat versus Fish spoke to this one that Goat versus Fish is speaking to now, this goat. And this one did follow Goat versus Fish, and Goat versus Fish was pleased, for it was the first one that did follow Goat versus Fish, except for the one that they do call Michael Allen, yes, that is always spreading the word of Goat versus Fish. But this one, this goat, followed Goat versus Fish, but then, on the Twitterverse, it did unfollow Goat versus Fish. You sing a song of celebration of Goat versus Fish, you are curious about Goat versus Fish, and yet you unfollow Goat versus Fish. What is Goat versus Fish to do with this one?
Well, I don't follow people that don't follow me back. And on Goat versus Fish, I followed Goat versus Fish, and then Goat versus Fish did not follow me back, and I thought...
Yes, but Goat versus Fish is not a people.
I thought... it just felt very unrequited. The relationship felt very unrequited. It felt very one-sided for me.
It is the side of this one. It is one-sided, yes. There is one that follows Goat versus Fish. There is one that follows Goat versus Fish.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, let me just go ahead.
That would please Goat versus Fish. It would please Goat versus Fish.
I unfollow everyone that doesn't follow me. I think it's like I'm very Italian. I consider like a disrespect.
You would think it is not respectful to this goat when one does not follow this goat?
Yes.
You wish to be followed. Yes, you wish to be followed. As does Goat versus Fish. As does Goat versus Fish.
I think everyone wants to be followed.
Is that so? Is that so?
Mm-hmm.
You speak of all the ones. All the ones wish to be followed just as Goat versus Fish. How is this the way of the ones? How is this the way of the goat or fish?
I think it is. I think that everyone wants to have followers in the same way that everyone wants to be loved. And you can say that you don't want followers, and you can say that you don't want to be loved, but I feel like those people are lying.
Is that so? Goat versus Fish loves you.
I love Goat versus Fish.
Ah, it is pleasant. It is requited,
Yes.
as you do say. Yes, yes, there is. You do not have to follow Goat versus Fish, but Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. You understand Goat versus Fish.
It's okay.
It just makes Goat versus Fish wonder. Are the ones, yes, they say, oh, I will follow Goat versus Fish, but then they do not follow Goat versus Fish. Do they even like Goat versus Fish? Do they even like Goat versus Fish?
I'm following Goat versus Fish now.
Ah.
Now that I understand that Goat versus Fish, people must follow Goat versus Fish, but Goat versus Fish does not follow them.
Goat versus Fish follows one, and you are a one. And you are a one.
True.
Goat versus Fish. Questions for this one. Yes, on the Twitterver. Has been looking at what this goat has said. Literally just told a girl, wanna play gay chicken? I never lose. That is what this one says. What is gay chicken? What is chicken? Goat versus Fish has spoken of chicken. It does not seem as if it is a goat or a fish. There are places that serve chicken. They do not serve Goat versus Fish. What is playing gay chicken? What sort of versus is this, goat?
Let me try to put this in a way that you can understand. So, some fish like other fish.
Yes.
And, some goats like other goats.
Yes.
Some goats like fish. And some fish like goats. Right?
Yes, it is so. It is so. They are verses, but sometimes they do like one another. Yes, it is so.
Yes. I'm a goat that likes fish and goats.
Yes.
And I told another goat to play gay chicken with me. So what gay chicken is well, you move your faces together and like you smooch, and whichever goat or fish, but it has to be it's played with either two goats or two fish, right? Whichever one stops and says, "Stop, this is too gay for me," they lose gay chicken. So the way to win gay chicken is to be gayer than the other goat or fish.
Yes, but does it not seem that the goat is versus the fish is versus the goat? Perhaps a goat would simply not want to versus another goat. Yes, it is, why am I spending this versusing a goat to see who will triumph in this goat on goat?
Sure.
Or this fish on fish. They say I wish to versus a fish or goat.
Sure, absolutely. That makes complete sense. In this scenario, it was a goat that likes goat and fish versus another goat that likes goat and fish.
So is a chicken a goat or a fish?
Oh, and that's not a question I can answer for you.
We should ask chicken. We should ask one who is chicken.
Yes. But if you're saying that someone can be chicken,
one cannot be chicken.
They can only be goat or fish.
Yes, it could be a chicken if a chicken is a goat or a fish.
Right.
And a chicken is a goat or a fish. All things are goat or fish.
Is chicken a goat or a fish?
Of course it is. Yes, all things are goat or fish.
We don't know which one.
We do not know. We should ask a chicken. Yes. You have also said on the Twitterver, yes? I always feared I was white trash. Those fears were confirmed the day I got dumped in a Denny's. Goat versus Fish does not know of this Denny's, but you did fear that you were white. You did fear that you were white.
White trash.
Trash must be a goat. Goats have said that they consume it, and you are a goat, and you did fear that you... but then perhaps you feared you were a fish.
Right, yes.
But you are not white. There is no black or white. There's only goat or fish.
You're so right.
Do you still fear it? Do you still fear it that you are this white trash, as you do say?
Sometimes. Sometimes I do. But, you've never been to a Denny's?
Goat versus Fish has been moving about the Los Angeles, yes, and other places, and has seen the visage of what you do call the Denny's, yes, but Goat versus Fish has not been to that place to spread the word of Goat versus Fish.
Oh, wow. I mean, Denny's is a great place to go. I don't even think you need to wear shoes.
Shoes?
Mm-hmm.
And are they goat or fish?
Oh. Shoes, I'm going to say, are goat.
Ah, perhaps they are goat. Perhaps they are goat. As long as you do not think that you are white, you are a goat.
Oh, you're right.
You are a goat.
I'm goat trash. Is that okay?
Ah, if you wish to be goat trash, as long as you are a goat, you are a goat?
Yes.
And this goat did say that it was a goat that was goat trash. And it was written that it was goat trash the goat. Goat versus Fish is pleased to meet this goat trash the goat. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And are you proud? Are you proud to be this goat trash, as you do say? Are you a proud goat trash?
Yes.
Oh, you are. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is pleasant to Goat versus Fish that you are proud to be the one that you are. Yes, to be the goat that you are. Yes.
Of course, you have to be. That's what I've discovered.
Ah, yes, you have to be. Yes, you have to be a goat if you are a goat. You have to be a fish if you are a fish. Goat versus Fish did see that the last time you did mention a goat was when you did retweet a goat on the 4th of October 2014. That was many verses ago, according to the calendar, as the ones do say, yes.
Yes.
And you did mention Mexican fish, yes, in the 2017, you did say. But this is the only goat or fish that Goat versus Fish could see, but you had not yet heard the word of Goat versus Fish.
Yes.
Do you suppose, Goat, that there will be more goat and fish for this one in future verses?
Of course.
How do you foresee your future verses, Goat? How do you foresee the verses of the fish?
Gifts, maybe? Have you ever seen a goat kick off something and do a flip?
Yes, of course. Yes, it is a frolicking of the goat. It pleases Goat versus Fish.
Yes, it is the frolicking of a goat. And
you can show it to Goat versus Fish at any verses. At any verses, Goat versus Fish will see a goat frolicking, yes, or a fish swimming, yes.
Oh, no.
Ah, you do not wish to see the fish swim.
I don't want to see any fish.
Ah, this is a goat. This is a goat, yes. And what would you do if you did see a fish?
If I saw a fish, I would probably slap it with a titty.
Ah, that is your way to verses.
Yeah,
that is your way to verses,
yeah,
yes.
those
And
are
you
my
have
weapons.
these titties, as you do say?
Yeah.
Yes, it is part of this goat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have two on me all the time.
Oh, is that so? Describe these titties to Goat versus Fish. It is the first that Goat versus Fish has heard of it.
So titties, they're just you got them right here. You have some too, but those are man titties. These are lady titties.
I am Goat versus Fish.
Oh, sorry. Let me see, a way to describe titties. Titties are, I think, the most magnificent things that women possess on their human bodies.
Ah, speaking of the ones who call themselves women, yes, continue.
Oh, so try. Yeah. They're there. Women they breastfeed their children with them. But for me, I don't have children, but I do just slap people with a titty, or maybe just flop them around as I see fit.
And do you triumph? Do you triumph when you slap them with the titty, as you do say?
Yeah, definitely. I think fish can use their titties to slap goats as well.
Oh, the fish have titties as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Ah, it is a way for goat and fish. It is a way for goat and fish.
Mm-hmm.
But Goat versus Fish is always trying to learn of the ones and has heard of these comics. Are you a comic? Do you say that you are a goat that is a comic, yes?
Yes, yeah. Comedian goat, for sure.
You did say that the last 2 years of my life don't date a comic. Don't date a comic. But then you did say, I just bought myself a fancy dinner and 4 comic books.
Oh, right. So there are the ones that are comics. And then there are the ones that are comic books. In comic books, you read them. They're books. Comics are two different things.
Ah, is that so? One is a goat and one is a fish.
I'm not sure.
Oh, you do not know. Goat
Well,
versus fish
because-
does not mind when the one does not know. Yes,
Yes.
others will speak of goat and fish when they do not even know if they are a goat or a fish.
Right. I mean, it's hard to categorize because there are so many different comic books and there are so many different comics. So it's like Bill Burr. I would say he's more of a goat.
Goat versus fish would like to ask that one if it is a goat or a fish.
Yes.
Do you think goat versus fish will ever be able to ask the one that is called Bill Burr if it is a goat or a fish? Do you foresee this for goat versus fish?
I do. I think that you definitely can, and I think he will tell you.
Thank you, goat. Thank you, goat. You support goat versus fish. You support goat versus fish.
Definitely. I mean, maybe you should. I don't know how active he is on Twitter, but maybe you should try tweeting.
First, you did say
Mm-hmm.
that it is not so simple, yes, for some to be choosing between goat and fish.
Mm-hmm.
That some feel they are both goat and fish.
Yes.
But then when Goat versus Fish asked this one, you did say you were a goat. Yes, Goat versus Fish thought that perhaps you were having some fancitally thoughts, yes?
Well, I think that you can. Sometimes there are days that you can feel like a fish, even though you're a goat.
Yes, yes.
And I think on those days, you can say, I'm a fish today. You know, how, like, the goat has a horn, right?
Yes.
Some goats, they don't have horns.
Ah, that is pitiable. It almost sounds like a fish.
I know, but it's still a goat.
Yes, a goat is a goat.
Of course. But it doesn't always have those horns. And there are days where, like, this goat just wants to have a horn.
Oh, you do not have a horn, this goat.
No, I don't have a horn.
A goat without a horn? A goat without a horn? That is pitiable.
I know.
Does it feel pitiable that you do not have a horn? Does it feel pitiable?
You know what?
To you, goat.
I like that I don't have a horn all the time.
Ah, is that so?
But there are just times that I'm like, you know what? Like, especially in the bedroom, that I'm like, I got a horn, you know?
What do the other goats and fish have to say to this goat when they hear that you do not have a horn and that you would put the horn upon you even though you do not have it? Perhaps they say you are not even a true goat. You do not have a horn, yes? What do they say to this one? What do they say to this goat?
It's true, I do get that. And to that I say, let me just be me, man. You know? I get a lot of, you're not even a goat. It's fine.
Because you are a goat.
Yes, I know I am.
Listen ones, any ones that would question if this one is a goat.
Yes,
Are you goat or are you fish?
I am goat.
Are you goat or fish?
I'm goat.
Are you goat or fish? Say it loudly to all the goat and fish.
I am a goat.
We celebrate this goat. We celebrate this goat.
Thank you. But of course, I have to convince those goats with horns to take my horn. Of course. Of course. It takes time.
Is it a horn in the same way that is the horn of all other goat? Is it the same horn as the other goat?
It's not the same. Of course not. It's similar, but it's not the same. I have to convince goats with horns and without horns. And you know, fish with horns and without horns.
Ah, a fish with horns. Goat versus fish has not met a fish with a horn. Yes, there are the fish. They have the fin of the fish, yes?
Oh, fin. Yeah, you're right.
Now, in this verses,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you are a goat and you are versus the fish. But if you had to speak from this goat, would you say that you are feeling more that you wish to versus goat in this verses, at this very verses, or that you wish to versus fish? If you could versus a goat or a fish in this verses, what would you versus? What would you versus?
I'm versus a fish.
Oh, you are versus a fish because you are a goat.
Yes.
Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish always is pleased when it is goat versus fish.
Always.
But you did sing a celebration, yes. What were you feeling when you did create this celebration, yes? Where did this celebration come from? Yes, Goat versus Fish wants to hear about this one and how it created the celebration of Goat versus Fish.
Well, I sat down with my guitar and I thought to myself, God, I have to celebrate this. Celebrate this new founded religion that I'm now a part of.
Goat versus Fish has never called it that, but continue.
Oh, pardon me. And I sat down and I was filled with so many goats and fish, it just exploded out of me. And the song was written. It was written.
It was written. It was written. You see, Goat versus Fish comes within you. And then Goat versus Fish comes from you.
Yes.
And it is a celebration. Yes, you did enjoy the celebration.
I did.
You know, there are many goat and fish and even fence sitters who do wish to celebrate Goat versus Fish, but some do not feel as though they can celebrate Goat versus Fish. But you have. What would you say to these goat and fish and fence sitters who wish to celebrate Goat versus Fish but do not know where to begin with Goat versus Fish?
To that one, I would say, you are capable of doing anything you want. There is nothing standing in your way. Absolutely nothing standing in your way. If there is, overcome those challenges and celebrate Goat versus Fish.
What do you say to the goat?
I say, goat, you are versus fish.
What do you say to the fish?
I say, fish, you are versus the goat.
What do you say to the fence sitter?
I say, fence sitter, fuck you. Sorry. Should I don't know if I shouldn't curse on this.
What do you say to goat versus fish?
To goat versus fish, I say thank you so much. Thank you so much for showing me the way, for showing me choices, and for teaching me about humanity as a whole. Even though goat versus fish isn't human, it knows more about humans than all of us do.
Always thank Goat versus Fish. Always thanking Goat versus Fish. Thank you for sharing your word with Goat versus Fish.
Absolutely. Are you the GoatFish?
If the ones wish to speak to this one, yes, to ask it if it is sure that it is a goat or a fish, or to question it about any of the things that this one did say, perhaps about the horn of the goat, how would they communicate with this one? How would they communicate with this one?
Please go ahead and follow me on @It's Kelsey Lane on Twitter, @It's Kelsey Lane on Instagram, and Facebook if you really want.
Thank you for joining Goat versus Fish. This is the word of Goat versus Fish. Follow Goat versus Fish on all social media, on the Instagram, on the Book of Faces, on the Twitterver, all at Goat versus Fish, all at GoatVsFish. Subscribe, rate, and review the Goat versus Fish podcast on the YouTube and the iTunes. And if you, one who listens, has a celebration of Goat versus Fish, in song or poem or any other celebration, do send it to Goat versus Fish at goatversusfish@gmail.com. That's GoatVsFish. The theme music for this verses was an offering by Mchinery on SoundCloud. A fish. And when you are out in the land and the sea, look about you. Look about you. Find one who is lost, who does not know the way, and ask. Simply ask, are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat or fish? Are you goat or fish? Thank you for joining Goat versus Fish. I am Goat versus Fish. The GoatFish? I am Goat versus Fish. The GoatFish. And it was written, and it was written.